Okay, good morning here in Montreal. Forgot where I was. Um, we should get started here and kick this meeting off. So welcome. This is Registration Protocols Extensions, primarily EPP and RDAP. Well, it is EPP and RDAP, and I feel I need to say that given that we have an RPP, different protocol sort of out there doing things. So just to be clear about what we're talking about here. I am James Galvin, one of your co-chairs. Jorge Cano sits here next to me, and Antoine Verschuren is actually remote, and there he is. Wow, look behind me. Okay, wait, all good. So welcome. Thanks for being here this morning in the second session. So, moving on. This is our note well. This is the new note well. This is what you agreed to when you registered to be here at the IETF. And note that, as it says in the first sentence, by participating, you agree to follow various IETF policies and procedures. And you did that when you registered, and you are participating by sitting here in the room. It's just important to keep that in mind. This is just a look at some of the policies and procedures that apply, and you are encouraged, if not strongly urged, to review that and check that and make sure that that matches your needs. And the QR code there will get you to the main page, which has the complete list of everything from which this slide is drawn. Okay? So, agenda bashing. Our agenda is pretty pro forma. I'm going to assume there's no real bashing to go on here. It's always the same from meeting to meeting. It's only the content inside that changes. And I'm not seeing any hands or anybody jumping at the queue. So we'll get right into welcome and introductions, which we are already well into. You've seen the note well. We do have a note scribe. Rick Wilhelm, our usual candidate here, has already volunteered to fill out Notepad and record actions at a minimum as the agenda progresses and as we get through things. So that's good. And we also like to ask and remind people, to please volunteer to be a document shepherd. If you are interested in at all moving into, leadership positions in the IETF, being a document editor yourself, it's a good starting point. It really is. And you really don't have to know anything to do that. So newcomers, especially new attendees, please volunteer to be a document shepherd. Right now, I believe the only document that does not have a document shepherd is me speaking as a participant. We have the related group document. So I'm always interested in volunteers. Otherwise, I'll be reaching out to tag someone. But I think all the rest of our documents have a document shepherd at this point. Okay. Moving on, let's look at published. We are doing really well. We haven't had any in a while, but we had a banner period here since July. 3 of our documents that have been pending for a while. The best practices for deletion in EPP is really a BCP on clarifying what delete means and the functions of the delete in EPP. So just to call that out, might be useful for people to check that out. Make sure that your implementations are aligned with what's there. The email address extension is about being able to carry internationalized email addresses. This one has been years in the making. It was delayed. We actually submitted it to the IETF at IESG at one point, had to come back, had some additional work to do, but it has finally gotten through the process after, far too many years of having been debated about little details. But, yay for us. Internationalized email addresses can now be carried in EPP. The RDAP extension for GeoFeed, optional thing, for those who are interested in the GeoFeed activities and application, you now have a way to use the RDAP protocol to do that. So moving on to what's in the RFC editor queue. We do not have anything in the queue right now, but we should have a number of things shortly. We have quite an active set of documents getting ready to go. And we have one document which is currently sitting with the IESG. That's the RAR search document. So it's out of our working group. It's not really our responsibility anymore, but we like to track our work all the way to being an RFC. So, all right, let's get into the good stuff here. So this is the set of documents which we do not have on our agenda for discussion, but it's all the rest of the documents that we have on our list, and I will quickly run through these and offer their status. And then at the end, I'll ask if anybody, any of the authors want to jump up and add anything to them. The first document, RDAP extensions. Oh, I'm sorry. I should also mention these documents are listed by their milestone date. So you can see, we've got some pretty old documents. In fact, you have to get all the way down to the bottom, and all of the documents, except for the one on the bottom, which is brand new, are actually old. So the chairs are going to take it on themselves here to provide an update to some of these for our next meeting. We're just going to push for an update in our milestones. We like to try and keep them up to date in some sensible way. So as we evaluate the priority of the working group, as we see what's getting active in the working group, we may move some of the ordering of some of these around just to sort of match what we think. But of course, the actual setting is always open for working group discussion. We've just found historically that if we just set things, it tends to be a lot easier. Most people don't pay too much attention to the administrivia, but if it ever bothers you, please do let us know. We're happy to work with you to make it more amenable to what you think is appropriate. RDAP extensions at the top is just waiting on the document shepherd at this point. We had quite some discussion over the past year, an interim meeting, a poll that we had to use to get something. And I'm forgetting offhand, I thought I remembered, I looked it up who the document shepherd was. But anyway, that's what the status of that document is. The next two, versioning and the extensions parameter, were explicitly waiting for the extensions document to pass. So now that that document is going to move forward, as soon as the document shepherd finishes and we get it submitted, we're expecting the authors and other members of the working group to move those things forward. The RPKI registration data and the next two, the HTTPS and quick transports, are just pending for the document authors to progress that work. Just waiting for those authors to do something on the mailing list to move them forward. And, we don't generally, beat on people too much about those kinds of things as chairs, but we may start doing that as our list of documents here grows. We're going to have to decide if we're really progressing this work or not. So just putting that out there. And then lastly, I can see Ari standing at the queue there. The last one was not on the formal agenda that was published on the out there. It was just overlooked, but it was added here. We recently had this document, the extension registry for EPP. There's been quite a bit of discussion over the past week, especially about that document. I think we're in a good place. And hopefully this document will close in the next few days, or certainly within a week. And then we'll be able to move that along and push that up to the ISG and get it going, as long as nothing else comes up that we've missed. So that's be a good little bit of success for us. And with that, Ori, you wanted to add something here, please.
Hi, Ori Steele, responsible AD. So the RDAP extensions for DNS time to live, I noticed there's a milestone that I hadn't approved, so I apologize for not approving that before. That's the one you just mentioned. Is that correct?
No, actually, it's not.
Okay.
We haven't gotten to that one. That one's actually going to be later on in this meeting. But
Okay.
It's the RDAP extensions at the top there, which is the generic one, which is creating guidance for how to do extensions that I was talking about.
Okay. All right. Well, then I'll leave these currently pending milestones. I just want to apologize for not approving them for now, and I'll get them in the next batch. And if I don't, please send me a reminder. Thanks.
No problem. Thank you very much. We understand our ADs are busy, and it's all okay. Powell, do you want to say something? Is there? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at my screen for the queue. Thanks. Sorry.
You can have it first if you want. Now, Jim Verisign, I wanted to comment on the progress of the EPP over HTTPS and the EPP over Quick, because our action item was to reach out to the Quick working group and the HTTPS HP Biz working group. We got a response back from the co-chairs from both those working groups. In the case of the EPP over Quick, we got a good amount of feedback from Lucas, and we incorporated that in the last version that was posted like yesterday. And he's going to do another review of it to see whether or not there's any other changes. I'm looking for the working group to please review that draft. I believe it's ready to go after we get the feedback address with Lucas. And then on the HTTPS, it's gone to the HTTP directorate as well, but we haven't heard anything material yet. So in that case, Mario implemented it as well. So that's pretty close to going, but we're looking for any additional feedback.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you for that. The other bit of process I'll just call out is when you're ready, I mean, obviously you send reminders to the working through the thing, but just say on the list explicitly when you're ready for last call, and then the chairs will pick that up. So yeah, that's the action to record. Thanks. Pavel, please.
Colleague Denik. To the point of RDAP extensions draft, you mentioned it's waiting for the Shepard write-up.
Oh, that's right. You're the
I
shepherd.
happen
Now I
to
remembered.
be the shepherd for this document, and to be honest, I don't recall we had a last call on this one. So I I'm confused about the order of things happening or expected to happen.
Fair enough. Sorry, I didn't think back far enough here to track that. Andy, do you want to say something? I thought we were in a last call and we had one issue and we closed on that.
No, we had a last call a while back and it got canceled. So he's right. We're not in last call. And recent activity on the list is that there's things we need to change.
Okay.
Yeah, material, yeah.
Okay. Thank you for calling that out. Then the action here is for the chairs to restart a last call. Sorry, missed that. Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, Scott Hollenbeck. Jim, I think that the milestone date for that last one should probably be January 2026.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, we just got that draft out there a little while ago, so time travel not yet being possible. Thank you.
I'll take ownership of that. I was making the slides, and yeah, now you get used to your years. So okay, but hopefully in that case. Hopefully we're gonna beat that deadline, beat that milestone. But it's there more because all of the other milestones will of the prior documents as we adjust them. They'll all be adjusted after that. So we have this model in this working group. The way we lay out the milestones, might as well take a minute to say what's really going to happen here is we line up the documents for every other month. So January we'll have this one. I think there's one other one here. No, no. So this will have January, and then what we do is we order the documents in terms of what we think is the working order, and then we put a document in every other month just to lay out the milestones. A couple of them are grouped together, like the HTTPS and Quick are grouped together. We've been kind of keeping them together. And we'll probably keep the top 2 and 3 versioning and extensions together, but we'll see, so that we at least all of them should fit into next year. Okay, happy to take advice from anyone, especially if you're a document editor, author, and you have a preference for where you want things. Certainly happy to take advice from anyone. Send a note to the list or send it to the chairs. Let us know what you want. And we'll put all that together. Okay. Any other questions or comments on any of the quick updates for existing work? Excellent. We are 5 minutes ahead of schedule. Okay, so at this point, we will go to existing work presentations, and I will turn this over to Jorge.
Okay.
It's not working anymore.
Interesting.
Just let's skip to the.
Apparently, the clicker does not like Jorge.
No. Not the least. All right. The first presentation is from Gavin. Let me share the slides.
Okay. Thank you.
Let me okay. All right.
All right.
Go ahead, Kevin, please.
Thank you very much. And hello, everyone, to those people who weren't in the RPP session just now. So I've got 2 documents that I'm updating the working group on, and kind of soliciting some input from those people attending, just to give us some guidance on where we should be going with them. So the first one is the IDAP extension for TTL values. So firstly, I want to thank everyone for agreeing to adopt this as a working group document. During the call for adoption, there was some discussion about how to represent TTL values in JSON. And so I'm going to summarize the 2 discussions. I don't think there was any consensus on which one was better. So going to summarize them, outline their pros and cons, and then and maybe try and initiate a conversation about the way forward, and express my personal preference as to which one I think is the right one. So the first option is the array-oriented approach, where you can see here that the obviously the extension property name needs to change to comply with what we've agreed should be the right way of doing it for extensions, but keeping it as it is for now. The extension is an array of objects, and then inside each object is an array of the record types that the TTL value applies to, and then a set of events and remarks that may or may not be applicable to that DNS record type, TTL. The approach, as you can see here on the pro side, it's quite concise in terms of avoids duplication, and on the wire it's going to be smaller, but it requires a bit more effort on the client side to process. So client will have to iterate through that array and then iterate through the record types to find, if it wants to, for example, just get what the TTL is for DS records, it's got to iterate through that array, and then inside each item, it's got to iterate through the types array as well. So it's a little bit more effort on the client side, but the benefit is that it's smaller on the wire and there's less data traveling between client and server. The second approach is an object-oriented approach. This is where the extension element is an object or a map rather than an array. And the keys of the map are the DNS record types. So if a client wants to retrieve a particular value, it can just directly address the DS property or DS key of the TTL object, and then get the value of that in order to be able to directly address the data elements it wants. The downside of that, though, is that the payload is much larger on the wire. There is duplication. And also, if you're using a framework or a client library that's doing some conversion of JSON into your programming language's object-oriented framework, then it's going to have trouble with the keys of the property because values may appear in there that it doesn't know about. So, for example, let's say deleg comes along, then every time there's a value there or a DNS record type there that the client doesn't know about, then that might break the client. Martin, I can see your hand is up. Do you have a question about this?
Martin Willink, SIN. Yeah, I was just wondering, because you mentioned that payload is larger in the second option. Is this also taken into consideration, like the compression when you're doing HTTP requests? So when doing real requests and using compression, the actual overhead might be less than we see here on the screen. So I was just wondering if you looked into this. Thanks.
No, so this is not taking into account compression. Obviously, the actual inflation may be less, maybe mitigated by that. So I've only got 12 seconds, so I'm going to move on to to express my personal opinion, which is I think the array-oriented option is the better one. Precisely because of the compressed size, and obviously when you're running an RDAP server, you're handling potentially hundreds of millions, if not billions, of queries a month, and a few bytes here or there can actually make a big difference. And it's also more consistent with the rest of RDAP, so we don't use maps elsewhere. We tend to use arrays of objects instead. So for me, it feels like the right balance. So. Yeah, so my question is that a deal breaker? And I'd like those in the queue, if you could answer that question, as well as answering any questions or asking any questions you want to ask as well. Pavel?
Yeah, so Pavel Kowalik-Denik, I wanted to comment about the cons of the object-oriented approach. So if you could come back to this slide. So
A little closer to the mic, please.
Yeah. So I think the mapping framework argument is not valid, because if you expect the value to be variable, you won't be using mapping, you will be using the generic dictionaries, and it will be fine. Also, this structure has built-in flexibility of having different event streams or remarks on the record type, which on the other variant, you will have to split it up into, let's say, sub-object, which will make the structure just more complicated, but let's say equally large. So, and as long as the draft is not defining that the events have to be always there, the payload in reality may be as small as the other ones if the event streams and remarks won't be there at all. Yeah, so I think for clients, the processing is much simpler, and I would either argument that for the servers, it might be easier to render it this way than finding out whether I can merge the records and then do some post-processing to build these arrays. So I'm not convinced about the argumentation. I would have preference for the object-oriented model, actually.
So my question is that if I decide as the document author that I want to stick with the array-oriented approach, would you object if we got to last call? Or would you say, okay, fine, I don't care enough for this to matter?
You mean how much of bike shedding we should do on this, or what? I don't know. I don't know. It's probably some implementation experience would help us to judge that, actually. Yeah.
Andy Newton, I am a client implementer, and I will tell you that frameworks that do use like annotations to map things into objects will have a problem with this. So the ones that use native maps won't. It's not a huge deal for some frameworks. Some frameworks it is. I think the array stuff is just better, just because the argument that it requires the clients to do extra stuff is negated by the fact. I mean, that's a one-line filter a one-line filter. It's not complicated logic at all. For generic clients that just display stuff, the array is better, because then they don't have to have logic for each specific DNS record.
Into the mic, please.
I'd say probably not the right place for that depth of discussion, but one hash map lookup is much more effective than two nested loops lookup. So
No, that's not true in small hash maps. So it's actually more expensive. I think the bigger consideration actually is the space. So I think clients could do either one. I do think that people who are using like annotation-based mapping are going to have a bit of a problem with the object one. But I think the bigger consideration is the amount of space.
All right. Thank you, Gavin. I don't see a strong opposition, so maybe if you want to send a request for the last call in the mailing list, and we can take care of that.
Okay.
All right. The next presentation is on for Gavin. Let me share the screen, the slides. RDAP referrals. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you very much. So if I could I have slide control?
Oh, sorry. They removed your clicker's privilege.
Thank you. So this presentation is going to look very similar to the last one. So thank you for working group adoption. That's appreciated. There was, again, some discussion during the call for adoption about how to do efficient RDAP referrals. So again, I'm going to outline the pros and cons. We have 3 this time rather than 2. So the first one is the one that the draft currently uses, which is it uses head. So the idea here is that the head response includes a link header, so an HTTP header that complies with the RFC on web linking and encodes the registrar's or related RDAP URL or link object into a link header so that the client can receive it. Because there's no payload, it's just the response header, then it's very, very small. It's still cacheable. And it also allows multiple values. So if, for example, an RDAP object has multiple links with the same relation, then they can all be represented in the response. The downside of that, though, is that firstly, to comply with HTTP spec, you have to duplicate these link headers on the GET response because head and GET response headers need to be the same. And the client needs to know how to parse that link header value because it's not a sort of something that you can just read off the shelf. It's got this kind of key value kind of structure that needs parsing. The second option, which is based on the partial response RFC, is to add a query parameter that your client uses to tell the server, hey, I'm really only interested in this. So the client sends a GET request with a query parameter that tells the server to construct a URL, construct a response that contains only the bare minimum information needed in order to satisfy that request. So that, for example, just include a links object with the appropriate link in it. It's obviously a much bigger response. It's also not usable out of the box because field set is a request parameter that's not extensible. So the partial response RFC defines a specific value for it, and it's not extensible in the sense that there isn't an IANA registry. So we probably need to update that document first and establish an IANA registry so that to allow that parameter to take different values. It obviously requires parsing JSON of the body, but then you're going to be doing that anyway later on down the line. So and a client is going to have that capability. The third option is to define a new path segment and then use a 302 response in the answer, so that the client just follows a redirect natively. That has the advantage of being very small on the wire. It doesn't require parsing of a link header object or anything like that. You can just use existing capabilities to follow redirects. That's no problem at all. The downside that I can see is that if you have an RDAP object that has multiple links with same relation, then there's no way to represent that in the response because the location header can only be one. You could potentially filter the array of links by using the accept header. So if you were only interested in related RDAP URLs and you weren't interested in related HTML URLs, then you could specify the accept header, and then that would allow the server to just filter that set of URLs to just those that point to RDAP resources. So in terms of my co-author and I, we feel that the third option, the path segment redirect, is the optimal approach. It's not perfect, but it's the least imperfect. It's small on the wire. It's simple to consume on the client side. The only question we have is how significant is this issue about multiple links, and would it cause real-world problems? I'm not sure I've come across an RDAP resource that has multiple links with the same relation that this would be a problem for. Obviously, in the numbers world, you've got RDAP objects that link to other RDAP objects in a hierarchical relationship, but they have the specific relation, so up, down, so on. So I'm not clear whether, if we were to go with this approach, how big of an impact it would be. So again, asking for input and discussion.
Werner?
Werner Staub. I already mentioned, I believe, at some point that it would be good to know who the registrar is, because a given URL can be used by more than one registrar. And let's say most of the time the client already knows the URL root of that registrar. But it is important to know who the registrar is. It would actually be a pity if you have to then still retrieve the entire lengthy thing to just get the smallest item that would be determined, just the IANA registrar number. That is essentially what you need to know. But if you knew the third option, what I would suggest would be add a line with that IANA registrar number. So we can, the client could then actually optimize its own behavior.
So one thing I would say straight away, Werner, is that not every registrar is an ICANN accredited registrar. This is designed to be applicable to CCTLD registries, to numbers registries, and so on. So if there's another optimization that can be done just for GTLDs, then I think that should be done separately from this.
Sorry, yeah, I appreciate that, but even a CCTLD registrar has a number and then is identified somehow. And there is an important question, who is responsible for the object? Because the URL is shared sometimes between many registrars. It cannot be read from that. So it's useful to have that to kind of document the responsibility for the object.
Paul?
Paul Kwaldenik. So as a reaction direct, I think this may be a topic for this second approach, but for profiling this RFC for this use case, this is completely not related to this draft. So I think this may be a valid use case to just for RDAP to be able to pick up information and have it extensible. So probably this may be some other work item, but on the option 3, I'm absolutely in favor of it. I think one thing that you haven't mentioned, Gavin, is the use case that we had on hand. So basically the client that wants to be redirected to the right RDAP resource. And I think the redirect way is basically the most convenient one to achieve that, because if confusing two links, the use case would be broken anyway. So the client should follow one simple path. And I think this covered in this approach.
James?
Yeah, Jim Gold from VeriSign. I prefer the query parameter, and the reason why is that I don't see this as a new operation. I view this as a preference. You want a minimal amount of data, not the full data set. And in this case, doing down the path segment sounds like it's a new operation as opposed to a preference.
Thank you. Martin?
Martin Willink. Sorry, I didn't read the document very carefully. But I was just wondering, option 3, there's the path segment, and you're using the get method instead of head. Is that because if you do a head, you don't cannot do a redirect, or?
No, you can do a redirect, but if you're instrumenting a client to perform this request, Many HTTP clients will just natively follow that redirect, but I don't know if they would with a head. But if they did, they would use head against the target rather than a get. And I think they would want the client's going to want to use a get against the target. But a head would also work because something that's instrumented specifically to do a head could take that URL and then do a get against the URL.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, there's more people in the queue, but we are running out of time, so let's continue the discussion in the mailing list, please. The next presentation is from Mario.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Don't see me? Yeah. I don't have slides to run, so I guess that the meta is well known within the working group. More than 1 year ago, the document in question was put in the status experimental by the working group. At the last meeting, some members of the working group and others on the mailing list proposed to turn the document back to the standard track. I only would like to remind everyone that most concerns supporting the working group in the decision to make this document experimental in the meantime have been obsoleted by to collect documents. I mean, just contact UID, just contact profiles. So I guess that the working group should reconsider the decision of making this document experimental based on these new evidence. That's it. As obviously as an author, I support the idea to make this document again standard track. But I am the author, so. So I would like to hear more voices about if it's appropriate to make this document standard track again.
All right, James.
So speaking as a participant here, I think that my concern is that I don't think the evidence is sufficient to overcome its status in REGEXT. I appreciate that it is getting some deployment in other contexts, but RDAP is really and JCARD is really the standard that we have, and I just think it is not a good thing for us to have two standards, two IETF standards for how to do this. We have quite a large installed base for what we have. So I don't see the support in this working group amongst our registries and registrars here for running JS Contact. So I'm cautious about issuing a second standard. I just don't believe the bar has been crossed. Thanks.
Werner.
Back in when we decided to make it experimental, actually was in favor of making it experimental, but I believe many of us had the view that it is experimental in view of taking, a step in favor of making it a standard. And also we had, because of all the problems with JCARD, and there are really many, there was Andy's proposal for the simplified contact. Basically, both of them tried to deal with problems that we have with JCARD. So in order to give us ourselves time, we decided it was going to be experimental. I think it's time for us to consider doing, making the standard. And there's one reason why I think that will be important. Now, a lot of work is going on in many registrars, kind of cleaning up their profiles. Many haven't even done so. So the work is going on also in terms of the ICANN data model. Is not closed. I mean, there's many more things will have to go on with the data model. If the standard is officially on the map, then people can actually get, you know, a strategy together to work on the in view of something is going to be actually able to handle the problems that we need to address. Whereas if we get stuck with JCard, it has so many things we're not even respecting. It's just so confusing. And if you look at just the standards that we use, just one important fact, for instance, what is the type of registrant? Is it an organization or is it individual? We go back to JCard where everybody just copied an example in the RDAP standard. They didn't even look at what it meant. So it is now, I think, a good time to take a solid standard for this. And also, you know, we should remember that JCard was defined originally based on vCard for personal exchange of contact information. This was not built ever for a registry. A registry is quite a different thing compared to, you know, exchanging data between, you know, friends. And we need to have something that is solid enough for a registry and not try to build this on the sand that you know, JCard is currently.
Yeah.
Mark,
We
what
run
do
out of time, so I'll ask you please to be short, please.
Okay, I support this. I think it should be easy or relatively easy to have this coexist with the current JCard implementation. Clients could, for example, use media types to signal what type of output they would like. So I also see no reason to keep this experimental.
Thank you.
Andy Newton. So I actually started implementing this a long time ago, and then I'm the one who kind of didn't like it. But all those things I didn't like are now no longer in there. So my client, the code in there actually is compatible with JS Contact right now. So it's just a matter of me doing the encoding of the JSON itself. So I also want to point out that at the Calyx working group meeting this week, Philip Hollenbaker proposed some extensions to JS Contact, which would make it much more useful outside of, well, there's a whole lot of new use cases when what he was proposing, and I could see how those would be very applicable to things in this space, such as code signing keys being an RDAP if someone wanted to have a TLD or something like that specialized in that kind of thing. So I think it's probably a good thing for us to look at this as a standard. And if contact models do get reopened up in the policy space, it would be a shame to have to do that in JCard. So,
okay, thank you, Andy. Well, there seems to be a discussion here that we can have. So I will invite you to send your comments to the list and keep it from there. Okay. Thank you, Mario. The next presentation is Eugene.
Yeah. Okay. No other comments from my side.
Okay, thank you.
So put up the first slide, and when I say so, go to the second to last slide. That's it. I'm just waiting to start the timer. Okay, thank you. First, I'm speaking as a participant here, not as chair. For this particular document, my co-chairs will be responsible for moving this thing forward. There is a set of slides there, and I had uploaded them. I'm actually not going to walk through the slides. These slides are the same as what they were in July, with only a couple of editorial changes. The most significant material editorial change was shifting from describing this in terms of variants to describing it in terms of related groups, and moving all of that discussion about variants and IDNs to being included in a registry policy, which would be out of scope. So this document should only be about talking about what happens with an EPP when you are managing a group. And in a sense, that response there is in response to something that Pavel had said on the mailing list about there being it seems a bit more of a business use case discussion. And to some extent, I mean, I agree with you. I think you and I have had a private one-on-one conversation about that anyway. I think there's room in this document to reshape a lot of the text and dialogue so that clearly has a more technical framing. You know, this is just where we got to at this point. So if we can just go to the second to last slide, then I will simply say that this document and where we got to, just as some background, there's a small group of us who've been working for over a year, almost 2 years, in fact, to get us to this place where this is the starting proposal for how to do this. And so we believe with the fundamental change of talking about related groups and not variants in particular, that it's now ready for working group adoption. And that really is our only request here. So we're finding that place. We've actually asked twice before. We asked that question in March. Got some good comments back, so we folded those in. In July, we were asking again, but then we realized we had to convert to related groups, so we've done that. And now we believe we're in a reasonably stable place that it's ready to dig in and work on the details. So I'm really just here in the allotted time that we have to answer questions, and really to, especially questions related to if you would object to this being adopted by the working group, because that's our formal request to the authors at this point in time to the chairs, is once we get out of this meeting, the action would be to kick off a working group adoption call so that we can really dig in and start to work on the technical details. There's a lot of details to be worked out in terms of error messages and responses that have to be figured out and detailed. So open forum. Just here to answer questions. Happy to go into any slide if anybody has a question about them. Yeah, so Werner, please, I guess you're up first.
Yeah, it's again something that was already discussed, but I believe you're making a big mistake if you use the word related group. It is totally incomprehensible. And
I'm
because
sorry,
it is, no, just let me finish. It is incomprehensible to anybody outside of this group who hasn't followed the particular reasons why we came up with this strange terminology. Now, we do quite a bit of damage in this context if you make something incomprehensible to outsiders. What does it mean, related groups? But how many groups? You know, do we count groups? What do we mean by related? Related can mean anything. I mean, use a word that can be remotely understood. The only reason to change this was that we have a strange definition already, which caused quite a bit of damage about what a variant was supposed to be. Even there, the IDM people changed the logic to call the variants instead of IDM variants. So there was a change there anyway. Call it variations, call it substitutables or something, but related is just one way to actually make the whole thing impossible to deploy because nobody will understand what we're doing. Then you might have just not do it.
Do you have a suggestion on a term to use? You and I have had this discussion before.
Yeah, make it substitutables. You know, they're substitutable.
Make it what? I'm sorry, I'm not.
Substitutables, you know, whatever, the substitutes, whatever you want to.
Substitutes.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So let's say it is particular kind of relationship. There's just about any kinds of opposites of relationships. So, you know, related doesn't mean anything. Make it something that people know what we're talking about. Variations maybe, but not related because nobody will understand. And let's say the problem with groups also is how many groups? You probably mean that it is the group of all the ones that are related, but there's one group. So then you have the pooling groups. Now we don't know what we're counting.
I take your point. Terminology is kind of a struggle. We moving it to policy and moving it outside of the document, we ended up landing on related group. We felt like that was the most generic term to use, but certainly open for anything else. If anybody's got a good suggestion, happy to take that on board, really. Go ahead. So, Pavel, please.
Pavel Kowalik, Denik. So apart from what I said on the mailing list, so I wouldn't be in favor of adopting it in this shape because of the overload of the policy language in this and business rule language in this draft. So opposed to Werner, I would actually, I like the abstraction of related groups which can be used for other use cases. I think the use case at hand is in the end that one registration has other domains which are basically reserved because of this registration and can be activated or deactivated. So this is very generic use case that can be for IDNs, that can be for diacritics, that can be, I don't know, for block lists and homoglyphs and you name it. So I think the concentrating on the wire format, how to communicate this statuses of these domains which got into this state of being reserved because of the registration and how the client would interact with it would make this draft cleaner, better, and the policy can be defined elsewhere.
So thank you for that. I do agree with you that the document as currently written, does seem to frame things in terms of business cases, maybe even a bias towards almost a policy description. And I'm sorry about that. That's just sort of a carry forward from when we were talking about variance explicitly and had all of that language in there, and we kind of left it there. We can clean that up, and I do plan to, and I would very much, like any other input that you might have about what we think needs to be changed and cleaned up. I think the only thing I'll say out loud here is it is intended to be a technical explanation of how you process a related group or whatever we call it in the end in EPP. And I think that it's drawn from backwards compatibility. One of the things that made it hard was the fact that we wanted this thing to work in the presence of being completely optional. So it was important for all of that. So I admit it kind of reads a little bit funny, but I do want to fix that, and we will in this document. I hope that that's enough to engender your support for adopting this with a commitment to fix that as we go along. But I understand if it's not. So thanks.
Jody Kalker from GoDaddy. I might be approaching this the wrong way. It appears that we don't want to put business into this, but unfortunately, we're in a business, right? I guess what I'm looking at when I read through it was, when I get down to the details of it, part of it is to do an update command to get a variant created, and then all variants would be created. To me, what I need to know is how much is that going to cost me? And I don't see anything in the document about that, about, if there's going to be an update command to create a domain, how many domains are getting created? How much is it going to cost? And I'm not sure how to put that into the document, but I just wanted to bring that up. Is, creating, if you're sending one create command or one update command and it creates 50 domains behind it, well, is the registry going to charge me for all 50 domains, or am I going to be charged for one or none? And I'm not sure if that's supposed to be in this document, but it's a question that I have.
So two things occurred to me. One is fees are not even in the base EPP spec. So I think addressing costs and fees is really out of scope for the IETF. So I wouldn't even want to look for a way to put that in this document. But other than that, the issue of creation, it should only ever be the case that one thing comes into existence or not. You're either adding one thing or removing one thing. There's language in the document about the fact that when you have a related group, and so you have a set of labels, when there's the single entity principle that has to be, it's required to be honored and respected. That's one of the basic principles of managing the group. And so it's not that the labels come into existence in the registry. It's just that the registry has to have knowledge of all the labels so that it only lets the same entity actually create them or delete them.
Yeah, I understand that. from the document, when I was reading it, it seemed like there would be more labels created for the registrar when they were just trying to create one. And maybe that was a failing on the way that I read it, but that might be something that.
Yeah,
talk to you.
if we can clean that up so that that's more clear, then absolutely. But it should not be that case. You're not creating more than one. You're reserving the rest.
Right.
Is maybe the right language to
Yep.
use.
Yeah, I understood that part of it. It just seemed like they were being
Yeah.
created on the registrar. So I'll read it again, but I mean, I'd be happy to work on this document. Whether it's ready or not to be accepted, I'm not sure, but I'd be happy to work with you on this.
Okay. Are you offering to be document shepherd then?
Sure. If you want me to be, I'll do
Hey,
it.
success. Yeah, Rick, please.
Rick Wilhelm, well done, Jim. You hoodwinked him into that one. That was, I'm supportive of this document. I like the terminology, actually. Sorry, Werner, because I think it makes it easier for the group, for readers to understand that this isn't just applicable to IDNs. I think often with stuff like this, it's easy for people to think, oh, this is IDNs. I don't care about IDNs. And so therefore I can just ignore it. And there have been a couple of times in EPP land where similar situations have scraped up against this related domain stuff. And we haven't had a way to express this in EPP, maybe without all the complexity that that we're looking at. I shouldn't say complexity, semantic richness that we're looking at here, but similar situations where you have domains that are related and you'd like to them to come into and go out of existence transactionally, but we didn't have a way to express that in EPP. And I think that this will enable some opportunities for interesting innovation completely outside of IDNs for people to do things with domains in either across top level domains or within top level domains, for people to do things like bundling either within or across. And this mechanism will enable people to do things in the business area that we should focus on enabling. And it's not just doing it around IDNs, either within a TLD or within IDN TLD. So I think that's one of the reasons why we should focus on for technology innovation. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate that. And I hope you don't mind. You just reminded me I should call out. I should have mentioned my co-author's name there, Michael Bowland, in the beginning. I believe he's out there remotely, maybe. I didn't actually check recently and see if he had joined, but I didn't want to lose that. And I did mention earlier there were a few people who we were working with to help us get to this place. And Rick was actually one of them back in those days. So just wanted to call that out and thank him for that too. Please, Pavel.
Yeah, Paul Kolik again. So you mentioned this single entity, let's say, policy or rule in this document. So this one of the aspects that I think doesn't belong to this document. In fact, so basically, it can be defined elsewhere, let's say on the application of this protocol, that these rules apply. So the protocol should use, let's say, EPP terminology. The EPP knows client, knows registrant maybe. So if you can express it this way to say that only one client can use the related groups, it's fine, but without, let's say, defining the strict business rules that someone who would like to use this kind of protocol for different use case, maybe with different rules, that would be kind of blocked because of this strict definitions of this.
So thank you for that. We can certainly continue that discussion and that issue on the mailing list. We took the same entity principle and left it at that name because it actually is different depending on whether you are the registry or the registrar. Who or what is the same entity is different depending on which end of that transaction that you are. So we need to, it isn't the registrar, for example, it's the registrant on the registrar side, but it's not necessarily the registrant on the registry side. And so we adopted the same entity as the label because that actually is what's used in other contexts. This notion that the set of labels has to be the responsibility of the of a single authority. And so same entity is the label for the principal elsewhere. And so we adopted that here. Like related group, I'm certainly happy to use something different if that's what people want to use and we can define it. But I do want to be clear that it can't be the registrant because it's not the registrant at the registry level necessarily. And so we need a different label. If you don't like same entity, we can make it anything that you'd like. You have a response, please.
Of course, there can be business rules coming from policy defined elsewhere, yeah. But I think for the protocol itself is actually not necessary to define that. So there may be some technical merits, like if you want to transfer a group as a whole, it's naturally a technical merit that you transfer its whole, and there is one client ID for the whole group. So there's a things that you should deal with in this draft. But let's say what all the description which is outside of the technical protocol should be just described elsewhere by the application of this protocol for ICANN rules or for whatever rules that someone else may want to have.
Yeah, I think I can only say that it's not a business rule. It's actually a technical requirement, especially in the case of IDNs, that there be a same entity. And so you can make the case that it has to have the same authority that manages them. And yeah, we're okay. We can continue the debate on terminology and what to do it on the list. I'm happy to go with whatever makes the most sense to people. But yeah, we at least tried to make a rational choice. Happy to explore that further.
I think Pavel made an interesting point in that, does the policy have to be defined in there? But maybe the two things are kind of related. If we name it after the policy, then we have a clear name. So we might call it the same entity group. Then we know that's the thing. Whenever the same entity has to be in charge, that's what defines the group. There's all kinds of relationships. But let's say the essence of that policy, and that is how we manage a policy, and all the primitives are based on the policy. Other than that, it wouldn't make sense to define the premise. And same entity is probably the essence of it. We don't want these to be in different hands.
So calling it a same entity group?
I think that might be an idea, yeah.
Leaning on that, thank you. That works. We'll take that on. See where we can go with that. I like that too. Okay, got a whole minute left.
Any more comments?
Yeah, maybe the critical question here is to end on this. I mean, is there anyone who has a serious objection? I mean, Pavel, do you want to stand on your objection to not wanting to adopt it? I want to hear reasons why people would not want to adopt it so that we can see if we can address them. I really don't think we can address the concern that you have in time to get this adopted, but I am committing that we will address your concern once it's a working group document that you raised about it being a little more on the business side than the technical side. Not seeing any hands or anything else. Oh, Pavel, please.
I feel like being called out. Yeah. Are we under some time pressure to get it adopted? Because I think this draft needs one serious iteration to show where it goes, and this is why I wouldn't express my support for adoption right now, because I would like to see that happening. And this let's say sense of urgency is kind of a bit confusing because we have a lot of things in the queue right now. Yeah.
I have a personal interest in moving this forward, and I think all work in our group progresses when somebody is passionate enough to make it want to move forward. So I'll just go with that for now. Werner, and I guess I'm over time. But
Just meant to say there is a sense of urgency, and that is because you've got the new GTLD round coming up. There is, of course, already a delayed process, which is the one of the diacritics. But let's say to have in view that there is something, be ready for that is important for people who prepare projects now. So there's not like we could reasonably wait too long for it.
Yeah, there is a general business need. I'm certainly not the only one that really wants to move this forward. So that's a fair comment. Okay, I leave it to the chairs to decide if there's consensus to go forward with a working group last call or not. Call for adoption. Wow, getting way ahead of myself. I'm excited. And with that, thank you all very much.
Okay. Antoine, do you want to say something?
No, not in particular. Just thank you, Jim, for this presentation and this proposal. And I think we have some consensus that well, you can ask the chairs for an adoption request, and we'll just send it out.
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, I believe too there is enough consensus to go ahead with the call for adoption, and I think we will do that in the mailing list then.
Yeah, and we already have a document chapter, so that's good.
Thank you, Antoine. Our next presentation is James Gould. Eric, sorry.
Yes, hello everyone. I guess my camera doesn't work. No. Do I have any slides?
Yes, give me a second, please.
Yeah, of course. Thanks. Hello, everyone. I'm going to present some of the findings of the EPP extensibility and extension analysis by the Tiger team that we started from the RPP working group, but we also have some EPP recommendations. I'm going to say I'm a bit in a time crunch myself, so I'm going to go quite fast and then perhaps call up Jim Gould to answer questions and discussions because I have to run soon. Just some background, and this is some repeat information for people in the RPP meeting. We have a Google Doc, so I think will be sent out to the mailing list once this presentation is done, with the complete analysis and recommendations. The Tiger team consisted of Jim Gould, Jody Kolker, Pavel Kowalik, myself, and Martin Volenik, all people who frequent this meeting. So some statistics. We analyzed in total 67 extensions. There are, of course, many more, but these were the extensions we found and had the time to analyze. If you look at the mix of types of extensions, the most extensions were the object extension at 31% and the command response extensions at 60%. Not surprising. And we did not find any authorization information extension. So I think this information could be valuable for the working group. So just to run directly into the EPP recommendations that we have. So we recommend that we enhance the RGP extension with a single step restore command and an optional expiry attribute to RGP statuses. There's a draft that could provide some of these enhancements. We also have some features of the .SC EPP extensions that could be merged into this. I forgot to upload the correct slides, but we also have some recommendation on the domain charge extension to transition to use the registry fee extension instead. And we also have some features of the .SC EPP extensions, removal of only contacts, and the CDN extensions to leverage change poll extensions like that, and perhaps update that and add some enhancements to that. And then lastly, we have to standardize and consolidate the IDN extensions. There have been some talk on the mailing list on how we should handle the IDN extensions, the IDN language tag, related domains, strict club bundling, and try and consolidate some of this. I'm going to skip that slide. And then we have the standardized and consolidated balance extension. So that includes the load balance, the balance extension. Fred has a credit info extension and the finance extension. And Jim Gould has a balance which consolidates the low balance and balance extensions. Just the next steps is to work in the working group to try and see if we could consolidate some of this and enhance some of the EPP extensions in existence. And Jim might want to say something more on the IDN extensions.
Yeah, Jim Gould from VeriSign. I added myself to the queue. Can you go back a few slides? Right there. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, one of the big items that we noticed during this analysis was the number of IDN extensions. And this actually supports the work that you just discussed, Jim, related to whatever you call it, variants, related groups. But if you look at the list of IDN extensions that are out in the wild, there's another one that's not even on that list, which is the Tango IDN extension. And I would really put these into two groups. One is associated with supporting the registration of IDN domain names, whether or not providing table ID, script ID, language tag, various inputs from the client that would be able to support and verify the code points of the domain name. And this may be something that you may want to consider in your extension of merging that in, because in looking at the Tango extension, they did both. They did both supporting IDN registrations, and then the second group was relationships. So if you look at the related domain extensions, strict bundle, and then the one that you just discussed, those are all about how to relate domain names, in this case, with different levels of coupling between the domain names, whether or not association, aggregation, composite. So you may want to consider taking the approach that the Tango IDN extension took of addressing both at the same time. So that's all I wanted to add on the IDNs.
And sorry, I actually really have to run due to some personal reasons. So maybe Jim could answer any questions that you have that we have. I'm sorry.
Yeah. All right. Werner, please.
I wasn't quite sure. Are we talking also about the balance extension here? Is that's after? Okay, sorry.
Gavin?
Hello. Yeah, so I just wanted to respond to one of the slides that suggested that the 3915 BIS may look at changing the way that RGP restores work. I just wanted to say that the consensus amongst my co-authors is that we want 3915 BIS just to correct the error in the schema for that document, and not to do anything about changing the way RGP restores work. I think if that was to be done, it should probably be done in a separate document, because there will be registries that want to stick with the current restore model. I don't see any reason to proceed, but will still have to be encumbered by this erratum, I should say, if we don't update 3915, and if we throw the baby in with the bathwater, then they're going to have to either wait longer or it'll never get done. So I think changing the functionality of the RGP restore should be a separate document. Thank you.
Can I respond to that? Yeah, sure. Yeah. So yeah, no, we thought that would be the logical place to go, but I can understand that you may want to limit the scope. So it's really a recommendation. If you don't feel like it's applicable for that draft, that's an idea. But the feedback in this scenario is the fact that there are features that would be very useful. I'm speaking for Jody Coker here. Jody, specifically, whether or not it's a single step restore, but adding in an end date for the RGP statuses would be exceedingly useful. I mean, we currently provide that in the text of the RGP statuses. So making it a first-class citizen to tell the client when the RGP statuses end would be really nice. So if you can do it, great. If you can't, we understand.
I don't disagree, but I don't think we're the people to do it.
Fair enough.
James?
So speaking as a participant, I just wanted to acknowledge your suggestion about pulling things into the related group or same entity group thing. We'll take that on as a suggestion for the moment. I kind of like that, but I don't remember all those extensions in detail myself. So I'm going to have to go back and think about that. I want to be a little careful not to pull in too much, if any, IDN specific stuff into our
Right.
document. But
You're
we'll
starting
see.
like Gavin now. You don't
Yeah.
want to pull it in. I
That's
get
right.
it. All right. No, that's fine.
Thanks.
Martin, please.
Martin Willink. I just want to single out one of the IDN requirements. This is IDN map. I just want to see if we can get some idea on how to fix this issue, because currently the ICANN IRST program requires the extensions to be in the IANA registry, and registries are using IDN map, but the only IDN map in the IANA registry at the moment is the one added by Identity Digital, and it uses the IETF namespace, but there is copyright attached, and I know there are legal disclaimers there, and so this is causing difficulty for other registries, and I'm just wondering what's the best approach for fixing this situation so that other registries are able to use this IDN map extension without any risk for any legal or copyright issues. Thank you.
You want me to answer that one?
Whoever.
I don't know. I mean, one idea would be to provide it as an informational RFC. If I don't really remember why the work stopped on it. Does anybody in this room remember why it stopped? It was an EPPX.
No. I asked like on the list, and even the original author said he cannot remember why this was not pushed to RFC. So
I don't remember myself.
And I think Identity Digital they needed it as well, so they just added it to the IANA registry, of course. But the way it was done was not ideal for other registries. So, and I think this also is related to the other discussion on how to use IANA extensions, what namespaces to use, what not to do, what to do. So I think this is a broader discussion also, but
so I'll give up.
Yeah, go ahead.
So speaking as a participant here, I think the issue that you're raising, isn't this covered in the extension registry for EPP and that document, which we didn't talk about during the Quick Works Party updates, but it's been going on the mailing list for a week. I think that addresses, if that document, if we come to closure there, it'll address your concerns, right?
I'm not sure, because the extension is already registered in IANA, right? So are we going to remove it then from, if you say, okay, you cannot use IETF namespaces for non-standards, then we cannot remove it from the IANA registry at the moment because it's used, right?
So now we're treading into a discussion that we could have under any other business here, but you're right. In general, there's always the question of what do you do about things that have already passed? Do you grandfather them or exempt them in some way, and then you only set the rules for going forward? The document which Scott has been authoring and pushing forward is at a minimum intended to set the rules going forward for how to manage the registry. It's a perfectly fair question to ask, do we want to take on having something to say about things that are already registered? The usual thing that we do in the IETF is make them exempt to the rules, and they're just there. But certainly it's a question to bring to the mailing list and to talk about, see if we want to go that far and say something about it.
Yeah. So, but even if the document says, okay, we grandfather them in or we remove them, there's if we keep the existing registration in IANA, that doesn't fix the IDN map problem, right? Because it's still copyrighted So yeah, I don't know what the best way forward is here. That's,
And I don't think you're going to want multiple registrations of the IDN map with different
no, of course.
registrants, correct?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so the ideal situation was that we have one IDN map using IETF namespace without copyright restrictions on it. So,
Correct.
yeah. So if we can somehow work into that direction, that will be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pavel.
Paul Wagdinik. So most of it I already put on the chat because I was not on the queue for a moment. So, but to the notion of redemption extension and let's say updating it with this draft that Gavin was referring to or not. So I would support reconsidering that because this is a breaking change anyway. And if you are doing a breaking change, it's better to do it for good reasons. And let's say fixing this ambiguity in current spec is likely from the business-wise perspective without any merit. So nobody would want to invest time in migrating, and if having some additional value like one-step restore could be this value that we can add. And it can be done the way that it is gradually deployable. So it shouldn't be a limitation for people who don't want to do it.
And I'll add as well, that document is not a working group document yet, and it should be a working group decision on whether or not to enhance it. Right.
We have to move on. I'm sorry. We have one last presentation. We only have 10 minutes. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to be introducing the balance mapping. Oh, thank you. Okay. And there we go. Yeah, so this is another recommendation out of the Tiger team that we just presented on. And if you see here, there's the list of 4 extensions that do balance-like kinds of functionality. We have the low balance, the balance, which are VeriSign proprietary extensions. And then there's the Fred credit info and the finance mapping. I provide a little bit of an overview of what are in those 2 extensions. But based on the recommendation, we went ahead and posted a internet draft that merges the balance and the low balance. So just to give you an idea, the balance info will provide the ability for the client to be able to query on demand for their balance information. The other is that there's a low available credit threshold that if it's hit, then a poll message will be inserted with the balance info response. So pretty much that's going to satisfy what the low balance poll message extension did. So you're getting on-demand balance information as well as a poll message if you hit a low credit scenario. Let's see if that's, did I do it? You press the arrow here. Oh, boy, it's delayed. Here we go. Let me go back. Is that it? Yeah. Okay, so these are the attributes of the extension. First off, there's a currency, credit limit, balance, available credit, and then the threshold. As far as these variables, you need to look at the equation. So available credit equals credit limit minus balance. It's like a credit card. Okay. But this particular equation will work for both a cash registrar, which pretty much prepays, and the balance will be negative when they have prepaid, and then they do billable transactions, which will increase the balance, reducing their available credit. And there's also credit registrars that will have a credit limit assigned. And as they do billable transactions, their balance goes up and their available credit goes down. Once the available credit hits 0, they can't do any additional billable transactions. So that's how it works. And that's why it's exceedingly important for the registrars to be able to keep on top of their available credit with this extension. Now, I do cover the other extensions that are not baked in yet, but I believe that we can look at the features in these extensions. The first is the attribute in the Fred credit info, the credit attribute matches the available credit in the balance mapping. The main difference in this extension is the support for querying based on TLD. So you can get a different balance figure on a TLD basis versus an account level. But that particular extension had no thresholds and no poll message. Finally, the finance mapping, that had a similar attribute, a balance attribute that matches the available credit attribute in the balance mapping. It had the concept of a wallet, and I really don't know what the wallet represents. We try to reach out to the author, and we couldn't get an answer to this. But one thing that is different is having multiple thresholds. So whether or not there's a need for more than one threshold, the balance mapping only has one. So in conclusion, this balance mapping merges the two proprietary extensions into one. I'm looking for the working group to provide feedback on that extension, as well as incorporating the features of the two other extensions that may be able to be baked in. And I'll be looking for working group adoption of this. That's it.
Scott?
Scott Hollenbeck. Jim, thank you. I just took a quick look at the IANA considerations in this draft, though, and noticed that while you've got a template there for registering this draft, there's no instructions about what to do with those two proprietary VeriSign extensions that it's created from. I believe they are registered correctly, right?
They absolutely are, Scott.
Okay,
Yes.
that's what I thought. So we should put some text in there that says, IANA, please remove
those.
the other two as well.
Actually, that's a good question, is that the namespace is different. I know we got into a whole bunch of discussion on namespaces on the mailing list.
Yeah,
And so the namespace is being changed from a VeriSign namespace to an IETF. So there's going to be a period of time where there will be both.
Okay, so topic for discussion.
Yes.
We are almost out of time, so please be really brief, please.
Yeah, I first want to say it's important to do this, but as we do that, I suggest we try to take experience into account. And it's always been hard to do engineering and accounting. They don't have the same way of speaking. You know, what is missing in the draft is in whose favor is the balance? What does negative or positive mean?
Okay.
If you have currency, we need to know, is this the account currency or just is the currency to which it was translated for some reason? We need to be sure, let's say, of course, the balance is always, of course, normally including tax, but that is not always clear, because sometimes the tax is calculated thereafter. So I think, would be good to look at these things and try to make it so. I have personal experience from this, having worked for a bank, and the only solution was to the problem to not stop talking about the credit limit and say it's a lower limit, and to introduce positive and negative. Positive is in favor of the customer, negative is in favor of the bank or for the favor of the registry in our case. Just to say that many things need to be looked at in this context.
Please post that on the list. I'd love to get that. Thank you.
All right. Please send a request for the adoption in the mailing list, please.
We'll do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we have 2 minutes for any other business. Going once, going twice. Well, thank you very much. See you in March.